Okay, so this dating disaster debacle is going to be a bit of a shorter video than my previous ones. And that's because on this particular date, I encouraged myself to use the powerful no and to look at that's N-O. Well, it could be K-N-O-W as well, but to look at red flags for what they were, red flags. And we all get them. Sometimes we get them early on when we're first meeting someone or first getting involved in a relationship. And sometimes we don't see anything until much later. But again, for me, I would rather have a pebble hit my head than a boulder. So if I see anything, especially up front, before I had any time invested in this person or in this relationship, I don't need to get to know you or see if what you've already shown me is really true. I'm out. So in this particular one, I had met a guy. I'm saying I met a guy. I met a guy. But anyway, we had. You have to remember back in the day, the places that you would meet people were either in church, which I didn't go, so I wouldn't be meeting anyone there, or at work. And I don't believe in getting your meat where you make your bread. So that was out for me. And then you can actually meet them through public events like nightclubs, parties, weddings, sometimes funerals, depending on who's died, but you get the point. Well, this guy I'd met at a nightclub, and I happened to be out with five of my friends, and he had a few guys that he was out with. So you know how you guys ask you to dance, you get up and dance, and sometimes they'll ask if they can come to your table or invite you over to their table, and strike up a conversation and that kind of thing. So that's what happened in this case, and that was how we had met. So at the end of the night, of course, we exchanged numbers, and he said he would give me a call and that kind of thing, and it was all good. I mean, you go out to meet people. Um, and some of my friends that I was with that night had actually made some connections with some guys as well. So we're busy exchanging phone numbers, finding out what someone does for a living, that kind of thing. Well, this guy, and again, I keep reminding everyone who's watching my videos that I am very cautious when it comes to meeting and then dating people and letting people know where I live and all of that, because you never know how things may go. And if they go south, I don't want to be exposed to, you know, them being able to come by or do any of that stuff. But I had talked to this guy for probably 2 or 3 weeks before, and he had been asking me out, and I was like, "Well, I need to know more about you." And in my defense, I do have to say that what I do when I'm talking to someone is I'm not actually looking for them to not be truthful, but I do go back over our conversations to see if there were any loopholes, if there was something they omitted, something they paused on or didn't say, things like that, because that's how you're going to get to know what's what. So anyway, I felt pretty comfortable with this guy, and we had decided, to make a date. Now, as you know, like I said, normally I meet the guys at the place that I'm going to, that we've agreed to meet at. But on this particular one, he wanted to come and pick me up. I mean, and he was like, I wouldn't say insistent on it, but he was like, we've been talking, and you've already met me at the club. You know what I look like. I know what you look like, that kind of thing. So I was like, what the hell? So anyway, he came and picked me up. Oh my goodness, you guys, very, very gentlemanly, the kind that opens your door. He had some flowers for me, which was unexpected. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people probably expect guys to do that on a first date, but I was just surprised. I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice. And we went to a really nice restaurant, and everything was really, really well. I mean, he spoke the same as he did on the phone. I didn't have to, I wasn't thinking that that someone else was feeding him lines or anything like that. I mean, everything was really good. He's a funny person, a humorous person, all of that. Nice looking, dressed nice, smelled nice. I mean, everything you would expect on the first date. And as we were getting, as the date was ending and he was bringing me home, we still had light conversation in the, in the car. Now, again, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know by the time I started dating, this was after I had been married and divorced and had kids. So it's not like I'm the new kid on the block, but because I didn't date a lot and was very cautious of, getting to that point where I would be dating and meeting someone, I'm very, just, I will say cautious or prepared for anything can happen at any point. Well, the person who was watching my kids that night had the person who was watching my kids that night had their person picking them up. Okay, so I had a female friend watching my girls, and she had a friend when I was coming home to pick her up. So that person's car was in the driveway. So when we got to my place, this gentleman looked at me and he says, I'm very, very solemnly, um, whose car is that? Now, of course, I'm not like don't really know whose it is, but I'm assuming that whoever's picking my sitter up, it's their car. And so I said, this must be my sitter's car. The car picking up my sitter, but I just said my sitter's car, and he was like, it wasn't there when I came though to pick you up, which of course it wasn't because the sitter was dropped off. And so that's what I said. I said, well, she was dropped off. There's got to be their car to pick her up, because she still has to get on. And he was like, this is how he looked at me. And I'm like, what? And he was like, well, why don't you go in and tell that person to come out so I can see them? Okay, first of all, this is a first date. Second of all, this is exactly the reason why I don't let people know where I live, what my car looks like, or any of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me say this. I'm a grown ass woman. I don't have to explain anything to you who I just met, who we're just going on a first date with. And I certainly as hell don't have to prove something to you as to who's in my home. I mean, really? If it were going to be like that, would I have you dropping me off? Well, again, maybe some people would, but I wouldn't be that bodacious. So when he said that, I said, No, that's not something I'm going to do because I'm not willing to do that. And I'm not going to allow you to put me in a position where I have to explain something to you. And boy, he did not like that. So he just sat there for a second and then he said, so what do you suggest I do then? I'm thinking, get your ass on out of here. That's what I'm thinking. But I said, well, I suggest you say good night and call it a night. Well, I mean, you know how people say that look of rage comes across someone's face and you're like, this man looks like he could either murder me or murder me and the babysitter, and the babysitter's right. So I knew right there. I was like, "Oh no, this isn't going to work." So, um, yeah, we're going to have to call this a night for sure, a night to end all nights. And then at one point he said, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have acted like that. He said, but like I said, the car wasn't there when we first left, and now you have a car there, and so I was just curious. And I was like, okay, I get that, but then I've told you what is, and you're going off like that. I said, that's just not acceptable to me. And he said, what do you mean it's not acceptable? I said, that is not something that I accept in my sphere, in my realm, in my world. Either first of all, if you're talking about, okay, I get it, building a relationship, but you have to at least start with trust. And you're going to start with mistrust. And again, I know some people do, but I was like, that's not going to work. So then he's he didn't he said something that made me go, wait, what the hell? So he was like, See, this is the reason why women get beat. Something to that effect. Women get beat or women get hit. And I looked at him, and of course, you guys, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I was born and raised in Detroit, okay, during this most turbulent times. I'm not the one to say something like that to. And so what I said to him was, whatever it is you think you're a woman should happen to a woman at this point, it would behoove you not to think about that in this case. I said, because I was born and raised in Detroit and I am not the one. Man, was I livid. So by this time, I'm thinking he could probably look at me and say, wait a minute, this effort's about to murder me in my own car. Because I was like, how dare, what the hell? So anyway, that being said, that did not lead to any other dates. As I was getting out of the vehicle, he asked if he could, call me later on. And I said, no, I think that this was a very nice first date up until this point, but there's nothing that occurred here in your car in my driveway that would lead me to believe that I would want to pursue any type of relationship with you. I'm not going to even give you that we can be friends one, because if that's your MO, that's why women get hit, or that's why women get beat, or that's why women get mistreated in any kind of way. That was not something I was going to explore, nor was I interested in exploring it. And again, for me, I'm not one of those women that says, oh, well, he just said that. He didn't mean it. Or he was just thinking that. Or he was just mad. Or he. I'm thinking about me, okay? And when it comes to safety of myself and, of course, my girls, and just being in an environment that's not of that kind, there was no reason for me to go any further with them. So, yeah, that was the first and last date for that. And remember, knowledge is in the knowing, but wisdom is in the doing. And so, not to victimize anyone. But when you see things like that, that's a red flag to say, hey, you don't want to have to throw up the white one where you're surrendering, okay? Get out now. You don't have to pursue these types of things, and you don't have to explain to anyone why you're no longer interested. I mean, that you can do that. I do that because I have placed myself in a position where I can empower myself throughout my life, whether it's working with relationships, family dynamics, um, situations at the job. And you guys are going to hear some of those in my other series. Right now, this series is the relationship one. But when I tell you some of the things that happen at some of the jobs that I've had and the stances I've had to take, yeah, all of my entire life has been a doozy. But it's a good one. And as long as we all realize that we make choices in our lives that determine the outcomes of our lives. So, by that, there's a saying that says everything happens to us for one of three reasons. We either allow it, promote it, or create it. Now, I'm not talking about someone let me see what I can say here. Um, Sitting at a red light when someone rear ends you. That's you haven't allowed it, promoted, or created that. But I'm talking about when you see yourself in situations, or you get a feeling that something's not right, or you see a red flag, and instead of you saying that, you're going, but maybe it was this, or maybe it was that. Then those are things that you're beginning to create a timeline for yourself and a situation for yourself, and possibly a negative outcome for yourself that you don't want to experience. But ultimately, you're the one that have made choices in your life. So you've either made a choice or you've made a decision not to make a choice. But in any event, it would have been up to us. So that being said, I made sure that that was the last time I saw that person. I did not. Of course, they always still try to call and come up with reasons why they were saying what they said or things like that. But again, for me, once I'm done, and I know this is so hard for people to understand, I'm done. I'm not mad at you. I don't have to curse you out. I don't look for revenge. I just am done. I'm through. That's it. Nada, zip, zilch, zero. And then I don't have to put myself in any situations where I'm trying to figure out why is this happening to me. So the only thing that I regretted with that particular case was that, this guy knew where I lived. I was like, God, dang it. See, you broke your rule the one time, and now this knucklehead event happened, and now he knows where you live. But he never came back, he never harassed me. None of that happened. So I mean, he's probably thinking I didn't have anything invested in her either. It was just the first day. So anyway, it was all good. So just keep things in mind that we do have the power to say no. We just have to make sure we give ourselves the courage to do so. See you later.